All right, welcome to Two Sons Podcast. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope all of you guys had a great weekend, great NBA free agency weekend. It's been a little crazy the last couple of days over at Hoops Tonight, but I'm excited that we can get into some good new content in the Game of Thrones universe. We're going to be hitting House of the Dragon episode 3 in season 2 today. We also have some second thoughts, some second look thoughts. We both rewatched the episode of The Acolyte from episode 5 last week, which episode 6 is tomorrow, which is exciting. So we're going to share some thoughts on that as well. I also started the new High Republic book, and
I want to hear your thoughts. I'm still in Plagueis again.
It's a grind.
Yeah. See, it's so funny because you're like, oh, this is awful. It's a grind. And then I'm still in Plagueis bliss. Just listening to one of the greatest Star Wars books of all time.
How far are you into Plagueis now?
They just started talking about Sifo-Dyas.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's an incredible book. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the High Republic book as well. But we're going to start with the House of the Dragon. So we end up getting a kind of a strange scene at the. I want to start at the end.
Which
of the
one?
Exactly. Yeah, Luke and I were always joking about Game of Thrones. Like they do a really good job of like keeping you invested in like what's happening, but like their shortcoming is their desire to like shock you with stuff, like a raven eating an eyeball or that ridiculous brothel scene, which had like 17 different bizarre things that we had to lay eyes on. But like those are classic Game of Thrones moments that you just kind of have to embrace as part of the show. That's the South Park episode, the wiener. It's like
I didn't know that.
George R.R. Martin, it's got to get him in there.
yeah, it's there. It's there this episode. They're
there. They're multiple. So anyway, at the end of the episode, Rhaenyra, she infiltrates King's Landing.
Yeah.
Finds kind of a genius plan for how to find.
It's that one chick. She just knows a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But she's like Set Pestage for Plagueis.
Saint Pestage. Saint Pestage, a little like a little right hand man that just does all the dirty stuff. So what I thought was fascinating about it,
but on Rhaenyra's side,
that's kind of what I interpret her as. As like the Master of Whispers. So the way I looked at it is like, Alicent and Rhaenyra used to hang out in the whatever you call the temple that they all hang out in there.
The little rose garden.
Yeah, whatever that weird
they had
like
tree.
Yeah. So Rhaenyra and Alicent, when they were younger, used to like go in there and like light candles together and shit. So like it actually was that happened in season 1. So that was kind of genius on Rhaenyra's part, where it's like, if I need to get next to Alicent away from the Kingsguard, this is my way to do it.
A holy place.
Yeah, it was kind of funny when she like pulls the knife out, and then Alicent's like, and then what are you gonna do?
Right.
You know?
And she's like,
I've started poorly.
Dude, I loved it. It showed their true history and friendship like really well.
No,
really,
absolutely.
really well.
There's this dynamic that I've heard from multiple dads. You're a new dad in the last year and a half. Not yet for me, but hopefully soon. And I've had multiple people tell me, like, no matter how old you get, no matter how many kids you have, no matter how much responsibility you have, like, there's always a part of you that like still feels the same way you do when you were a kid. Like, share with everyone the feeling you were having earlier when you came over to record.
Jason and I were just hanging out. We're talking about the new studio setup. And then we're just taking our time.
Yeah, Luke's remodeling our studio this summer. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And then it just kind of dawns on me. I was like, oh, I'm in charge of Graham today. Maybe I should get back home. No, my parents are taking care of G, right?
Graham's with grandma.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I kind of just forgot that I had a kid for a split second.
Yeah, just for a second.
Yeah, it's easy to happen.
Yeah, so like that's kind of what I thought when I saw that scene too, where it's like, in a weird way, like Rhaenyra is the rightful queen, right, of the Seven Kingdoms. Alicent is the Queen Dowager after having literally usurped the throne away from her. They are two of the most powerful women in Westeros.
Right.
But like they're just the same two girls that were friends when they were younger.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see that little bit of vulnerability there at the start.
Right.
But like I will say, like, you know me, I've been very complimentary of the women in this show and just how like they're the ones that aren't being insane. Like they're the ones that are being the most like steady and like the one like not making decisions with testosterone and stupid aggression and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely some truth to the fact that the ladies have been the steady presence, but this was not a very good idea in my opinion.
What do you mean?
I understand the sentiment behind Rhaenyra wanting to avoid war.
Yeah.
Like her dad said, your responsibility is to keep the kingdoms together so that you can eventually face the whatever's coming out of the north, right? Like, and Rhaenyra multiple times has been like, I have to do what's best for the people, for everyone, right?
Right.
And I get that. But like Rhaenys literally said while they were burying the twins, she's like, hey, like, people are going to forget what they're fighting about. Like, if it's not them usurping your throne, it's going to be Luke's death at the hands of Aemond. If it's not that, it's going to be Jaehaerys' death at the hand of Daemon's paid assassins. Right. If it's not that, it's going to be this. If it's not this, it's going to be that. There's just so many reasons at this point that it really was beyond reconciliation. And even further, at the small council, like I think it's Rhaenys or Rhaenyra, one of the two of them straight up says like, there's no way Otto Hightower would have ordered this attack.
That was Rhaenyra.
Yeah, right? It, like, and so that's a clear indicator that like, obviously the powers that be in King's Landing aren't reasonable people anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, so I took that in a little bit of a different manner than you did. I think that conversation that they had made Rhaenyra want to go and talk to Alicent. Because I think it showed her like this is a last ditch effort. Like if we are going to create any type of peace at all, like I have to go and do this. And so I think that was like the last straw that got drawn, leading into a massive war. And we're already seeing the previews for next week, which looks incredible.
Kind of a cool moment from Rhaenyra, right?
Yeah. So, but I think that was a last ditch effort. The other thing that you brought up that I just want to touch base on really, really quickly, I thought it was cool that they buried the twins together and respected both of them because both,
even though one of the dudes who's burying him was talking shit.
Yeah, but both houses knew that both Eric and Eric were super loyal to their cause and what they believed was a cause. And there's a ton of honor in that, and the fact that they buried them together and were like respectful of both was super cool.
Yeah, and Rhaenyra herself was like, I can't fault him for doing his duty, so to speak. Like he had a declaration, he upheld it, and not really much more to it than that. It was interesting to hear that clip from the next episode where Rhaenyra, presumably she's in front of her council again, and she basically says like, I needed to know with absolute certainty that this couldn't be avoided. And like, I get that. I do. But like, there was this moment where when they were sitting by the candles where like Alicent's like, there was no mistake. But basically what she was saying at that point, then she goes like, my father's gone. Like, Aemond and Aegon are running the show. She literally says like, you remember Aemond. Like, he's not exactly the reason. Like, Alicent basically, the way I interpreted that was Alicent told Rhaenyra like, you think I can stop these dudes from doing anything?
Right.
Like, these dudes are a loose cannon now at this point.
So you and I have debated about this. Do you still think that Alicent was lying to herself about her conversation with her husband, the king, before he died? Because I am still totally convinced that she thought that she was in the right with this, especially with that conversation. Because there was like a look of dread on her face when she heard the story from Rhaenyra.
It's about confirmation bias.
So, and that might be part of it too.
I think it was like, it's one of those things where like if all you heard was the name Aegon.
Right. And you really wanted to hear that.
Is your son's name.
Yeah.
But also happens to be the name of the most famous man in the history of Westeros.
Right.
Like if I met a woman and she said the name LeBron, I'm not going to think she's referring to her son LeBron. If she had a son named LeBron, I'm going to think she's talking about LeBron James.
LeBron.
You know what I mean? Like, the LeBron. You know, like, and so like at a certain point, like it's confirmation bias. It's like Alicent literally. I'm with you.
I hear you.
She believed it, but only because she had like this predisposition.
It was incredibly convenient for her.
Yeah, it was. Of course, it was convenient. And one of the things that I was actually waiting for her to drop on Rhaenyra, and she didn't say it, but like I was waiting for her to be like, Rhaenyra, like, you think I had anything to do with this? Like, I walked out there and I told them what my husband said, And they were literally like, yeah, we already were planning on taking the throne anyway.
I know. And what was interesting for Alicent, though, is it went from her thinking that she was in the right, whether it be confirmation bias or not, to her realizing that she wasn't, and she couldn't deny herself that any longer. But the ship had already sailed.
Yeah, there was nothing. She basically was like, "There's nothing we can do."
Right.
There's nothing we can do. Yeah, and it's like
was
what's
a good
crazy
scene.
is like those two are about to experience horrible tragedy on so many levels as so many people die in this show, and it's like it was kind of crazy to see like there's this little thread, like this little tiny connection between the two of them from their childhood. And like both of them are aware of it, but both of them are also aware that there's like that, and even just like something simple like Alicent storming away the way she did was almost like her basically saying like, I can't just sit here and pretend like we're friends still.
Right.
Like this.
How do you end that conversation?
Yeah, like there's no way
Right.
way to end that conversation, and to Alicent's credit, like her and Rhaenyra are presumably going to depart, and there's not going to be any bloodshed from this, so at least they pulled that off. But yeah, it was definitely interesting.
I wonder if that's
I thought it was extremely wishful thinking at this point. Like
Of
to
course.
Rhaenys' point, too much shit has happened now.
Yes.
Like the king, his son had his head cut off and re-sewed on and paraded through the streets. Like,
yeah,
there's no going
should not
back.
be laughing about that. Yeah, no, you're right.
No, but
the ship has sailed. Exactly.
Yeah,
the ship has
sailed on peace.
At the very least, it just creates great writing and great drama for a
Yes.
TV show.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Like,
It was
at the
intense.
End of the day, it was super intense. One of my favorite scenes from House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Thus far.
Yeah, I was watching it this afternoon, and Luke came over about like 10 minutes before the end. So you came in right as I was watching that last scene, and like when they sat there, like it was like just like I did for Star Wars. Like I sat up on the edge of my seat, and I'm just like waiting for what's gonna happen next.
Right.
Like there's Game of Thrones just has that uncanny ability. It's like we're literally talking about these two like high-powered female characters in this like feudal existence, just like sitting in a church.
Right.
Talking, and then you're just like glued to the screen, like what's she gonna say next?
Yeah,
You know,
it's good.
But
good.
yeah, I think there's some. I think there's going to be another level of righteousness that Rhaenyra kind of feels as well.
Agreed.
Now that she knows, like, oh, Alicent pulled this whole thing out of like. Hearing the name, I wonder if Alicent too, while she was telling the story, was like, she's like, yeah, he wasn't really all there mentally.
She did say that too.
And then, like, I wonder if part of her in the back of her head's just like, this
Shouldn't be saying this.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Rhaenyra took the knife out and first started talking, she started poorly. Like your whole pitch for how this is all justified is started pretty poorly as well. It's like, all right, well, he was drugged up. It was the end of the night,
and he was about to die.
Yeah, and he kind of said the most famous man in the history of the world's name.
Yeah. And it was probably my son, right?
It was funny though.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
What's your take on Daemon? Where are we at with him?
Dude, that was kind of interesting. So
that scene was so cool when he's walking through the castle.
So, and those of you guys who are more into the lore can kind of educate some of us in the comments. But like, from what I understand, Heren Hall is haunted, I believe. That's kind of like
that weird
I
flash?
think that's a thing.
It wasn't a flash forward. It was like not a flashback
vision.
either. It was like a vision.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
vision of young Rhaenyra sewing on Jaehaerys' head. And then there was that ghost lady who says you're gonna die here, which was which was pretty intense as well.
Yeah.
And in general, like I think that was intended to kind of build out some of the lore about Heren Hall and the fact that it's haunted. And then also like Daemon's like his chickens are coming home to roost, man. And like that moment where he asked to be referred to as Your Grace by the member of the Strong family that's holding court there, like didn't that almost feel pitiful to you?
It did. Well, and yeah, he's seeking refuge at this broken down castle. You know, it did feel very pitiful, but it was also Game of Thrones and the House of the Dragon does such a good job of like drawing these parallels. Like at one second it did feel parallel, but then on the next he's riding in there on this massive dragon and walking about this castle. And then when he becomes when that one knight tries to stop him, he literally like just pretty much like beats him up and then walks in to that room. So it did feel pitiful, but it felt like there was still so much available power there potentially.
For sure. No, and and here's the thing, like he's claiming Heren Hall, and
at one point that would be a huge deal.
Grace.
Yeah, and at one point that'd be a massive deal.
Yeah,
right?
no, it is. As Sir Christian said in the episode, he's like, this is the foothold in the Riverlands. This is where you need to, and as they say, there's 40,000 men that fight in the Riverlands that are kind of like an unclaimed host, and so they're considering that. Now the Brackens and the Blackwoods.
I was going to say, are there still 40,000?
Yeah,
because there looked
died?
to be about 40,000 dead people on that battleground.
There was many dead in
Yes.
the Riverlands. It definitely had like a little bit of that like Lord of the Rings vibe too, where it's like swampy and like the dead bodies are like floating in the water.
Agree with you. Yeah.
But anyway, like the when I say it's pitiful, like even the dude, whatever his name was, the Mr. Strong, Larys Strong's kin, who does not like Larys, he. Like even like was like, oh, your Grace, huh? Like,
yeah.
So that's what we're going with now.
I know that conversation was great too because he was trying so hard to show Daemon that he wasn't a foe.
Oh yeah,
right?
Because Daemon will kill him.
I know, but it seemed genuine to me, right?
Oh,
Like, did it
I think
seem
he supports Rhaenyra for sure.
Yeah, I think he does too. But he just kept having to tell him like over and over again. It's like, dude, you're welcome here. Like, you're totally fine.
Yeah, dude,
Eat our food.
Yeah.
We're not going to kill you.
We'll even call you king. If
Look, we'll put you in our best bedroom. It has very few drops of water.
It's the leaky, the least leaky of the bedrooms.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that was kind of fascinating too. The function of Heren Hall being in disrepair, because I vaguely remember in Game of Thrones during the war between the Lannisters and the Starks at the beginning in the first couple seasons, I'm pretty sure Tywin Lannister, when he garrisons at Heren Hall, I think he refurbishes it and patches it up and makes it function as a castle again. But like essentially, are you familiar with the story of how Heren Hall became Heren Hall?
Well, it was attacked. Oh no, please.
So Heren the Black was the guy's name.
Okay,
and that was the family that hosted that occupied that castle, and it was literally the biggest and most impenetrable castle in all of Westeros. And he refused to submit to Aegon the Conqueror, and so his dragon Balerion the Dread just literally melted the whole damn castle, like just destroyed cool. The castle. Very, very
that's
cool,
such a
right?
shame, man. Because castles are so cool, and dude, that's part of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and how good of a job that they do. Like that set was incredible. It was so good.
It was so good.
They went through so much effort in building that. It was one of the most incredible things. You felt like you were walking through the castle with Daemon, right? Like they even spent time on like Daemon's doors, right? When he had him locked up with the two swords.
With the sword.
Like, did you notice that they're all decayed and like water damaged at the base? Like, it was just incredible throughout.
Yeah, you've done a really good job over the course of the show pointing out some of those things with the sets, because one of the things that I've noticed in general. And I think it's like a blessing and a curse, because I think the blessing side of it is we're going to get more Star Wars content, and then the curse is like it's of this quality. But these giant like egg studios where they do the giant LEDs,
where like the Mandalorian was filmed, you can tell like a lot of the acolytes.
The acolytes filmed there too, like the forest scenes, for instance. You could tell what they did is they reset the egg with like 4 different locations within the forest and did all the shooting, and then kind of smorgasborded it together, but. While you're in the forest, it feels like you're in a room that is dressed up as a forest.
Dude, it's so funny you bring that up. My brother was just talking about that to me. Yeah.
And now here's the thing. Like, I think criticizing that is somewhat silly in the sense that, like, that's just the way they've done all the shows. So, like, you have to adjust your expectations.
Right.
You need to go into the Acolyte knowing it's filmed in an egg.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're exactly right.
But to Game of Thrones' credit, they've gone to incredible lengths in set design to make it feel big. And as a result, there's been less CGI. There's still CGI in Game of Thrones, but
of
usually
course, there's
like
dragons.
Zoomed out. Well, in landscapes, sometimes the zoomed out version, like when they're like, oh, we're at,
they didn't have
Heren Hall. Here's a big zoomed out view of Heren Hall. That's CGI,
right. Of course, yeah. Or 40,000 bodies on a battlefield. They didn't pay 40,000 people just lay there in grotesque manners. Hey, like more torque in your arm. You know what I mean?
You don't look messed up enough. We need
but like even the conversation between Rhaenys and what's his name,
Corlys,
yeah. Like even that set was incredible. Can you imagine filming while it's raining, right? And there's legitimately like real mud on the ground around them, and how big of a pain in the ass that would be to actually film that, and however many hours it took them to do that scene, right? Like the amount of detail that they put into the show is literally unparalleled. It's incredible.
No, absolutely. We were actually joking about that earlier. How many awkward hours all of the sex workers in the brothel had to be recording scenes. We won't go into any other detail for the sake of our listeners, but like I was literally sitting there thinking, I'm like, that poor girl who had to film that scene. Like, God, I hope they got that in one take.
Yep. That's all we need to go into on that.
Need to say.
Yeah, how funny. Oh my
man.
gosh. Well, and that's the episode. So thanks for joining us.
So the only other real thing that so Sir Kristen's marching out with the host from King's Landing.
Yeah, break that down.
And he's headed up towards Heren Hall. So presumably that's going to be the where we see some things come to head in the next episode is basically as Sir Kristen's host kind of enters into the Riverlands. My guess is he's going to run into the Blackwoods, who I think are with Rhaenyra, if I'm not mistaken. And there's going to be some sort of conflict there, which we'll see. We see Rhaenyra in the episode preview specifically state like it's time to unleash the full strength of our dragons, which that's going to get ugly.
Essentially,
we
nuclear
got a little
warheads.
bit of a dragon scene.
The dragon
Baela.
chase.
So Baela on Moondancer.
I think it's Moondance. Yeah,
on Moondancer ends up finding Sir Kristen in the middle of the
cool.
field. That was a cool scene, dude. Like
it's a fast dragon.
Kristen picked up on it too. He was like, "We were exposed." And one of the things I thought was fascinating too is Baela was under direct orders not to engage, and so she basically did like a flyby just to try to scare
everything
the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
essentially
cool.
like the equivalent of like the airplane that we use in our Air Force. That's our fighter jet, like our big fighter jet, like an F-22. Is that what it is? Essentially, it's the equivalent of
35,
that. There's a 22,
there's a 16, there's a 15.
Are there that many?
10, there's a bunch.
You are a nerd. You're an aviation nerd.
Well,
but essentially, it's the equivalent of that. And she did a flyby on it. And it was really cool.
No, it was cool. I kind of like how each dragon kind of has a different vibe too.
Agreed.
Like Moondancer kind of has a cool vibe. It's a little stubby nose, like kind of like a white and blue kind of like color going on.
Absolutely.
The more dragons, the better. But yeah, so. That's all we have for the House of the Dragon episode 3 this week. On the Acolyte front, so much is up in the air now. With all of this, I want to kind of I wanted to start with just like some of the complaints about Chimera as a Sith, because like some of the basic stuff, like people were concerned like, oh, how was he able to conceal his presence? That was a really simple thing to me that I think needs to be broken down. Like the
that
Sith,
is classic Star Wars.
The Sith are capable of concealing their presence. They just are. Not just Palpatine, but like Darth Xana literally walked around the Jedi Council, or not the Jedi Council, the Jedi Archives.
Right.
Surrounded by Jedi. She used a spell to conceal her presence. Like that was a consistent thing. And most importantly, like, and we didn't even get into this that night, but like Chimera to me is the quintessential Sith in the sense that like subterfuge is what makes him fascinating. Like he was literally right underneath the Jedi's noses the entire time, and then suddenly reveals himself to be this profoundly powerful being at the moment when it made the most sense for him to strike. And like in general, like that to me is what that is part of like the Sith identity, like subterfuge, operating in the shadows, striking only when they know they can be victorious. That is literally the definition of it. And
Palpatine did that literally for years living on Coruscant. How many Jedi did he come in contact with, and he was able to not only hide himself in the Force, but they talk about this in the Bane book too, where if a Sith goes too far in that, and if they become absent in the Force, then the Jedi would recognize that as well, right? Like an absence of Force. Like there's Force in everybody, right?
They have to look like an unassuming person, not like a nothing.
Exactly. So not only are they hiding themselves, but they're portraying like normalcy, which is really cool. But to something your point, that's totally been done for forever in Star Wars.
When the Umbar and Shadow Assassins attack Bane, Bane's like chilling by Lake Nath on I can't remember the name of the planet, but like he's what was his name? Khalib. It was Ambria. Thank you. So he's on Lake Nath on Ambria, and he's like sitting there camping, and he like senses nothingness around him, and then he's like, "Uh-oh."
He immediately like grabs his lightsaber and is like, "Okay, I'm about to fight. I don't know who, but I'm about to fight." Yeah,
exactly.
So that is so Star Wars. That is deep Star Wars lore. Totally okay with it.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like the thing. Like there's when Palpatine meets the Dathomirian Night Sister who gives him Darth Maul, like he wants her to find him, so he just like reveals himself in the Force. Like he just essentially taps into the Force, and then immediately she recognizes him from across the crowd, right? Like Palpatine will literally talk about like having to disappear into the realm of the mundane. You know, like you hear about that in Plagueis. So like, yeah, that to me wasn't really anything. I love. So one of the things Luke sends me that's actually in the notes that you sent me when we were talking about Jecki. You said Jecki's death was absolutely wild.
Dude, it was.
So I've watched the scene of Jecki dying
oh my
a
gosh.
bunch of
She
times.
died 3 times.
Bro, dude. So basically what happens is the Jecki and Sol are in this like confrontation where they're rescuing May because May was getting threatened by the Sith. Or no, this was after May. So they were rescuing. I think they were protecting Osha. So they're fighting the Sith. The Chimera clearly goes on the defensive. Like he's almost purely just kind of like giving ground and retreating.
Jecki was holding her own.
Some incredible choreography. That scene where Jecki comes like flying in and like jumps over the top and then chops as Osha comes in from behind, or not Osha, Sol. But like what ends up happening is Sol ends up getting into a physical confrontation with Chimera, and he like trips him and shoves him off a ledge. And as he shoves him off the ledge, Jecki comes flying in, and she's just like going right at him, right? That's when she punches and undoes the helmet.
Right.
And then she just kind of comes flying in like, ah! It's kind of funny when you rewatch
Dude, I know, it is.
But right at the last second, he just untwists the lightsaber, blocks, and then it's like, it like just triple stabs.
Just pinpoint. That was a perfect triangle, right?
Yeah.
And it's like right upper lobe, left upper lobe, cervical spine. Dude, she got jacked up. And part of it, as a Star Wars fan, you're like, oh my gosh, that was the sickest thing ever. And then the other part of you is like, oh, Jecki.
Yeah.
Oh, I really liked you. I'm going to miss you.
Yeah. Dude,
Same with Yord. Like, that was kind of sad that Yord got his neck broken.
Well, did you notice Osha felt them both too? So when Jecki died, they flashed to Osha and show her face, and she experiences like a little bit of like emotional fallout. And then when after Yord dies, she looks back and sees Yord's like corpse, and there's like a moment where she kind of like makes eye contact there. So yeah, like people's friends are dying here. But like the Jecki death, I think is the most violent death I've watched in Star Wars.
For live action Star Wars?
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
a Padawan.
Yeah.
A Padawan getting you watch her get skewered, and you see the burn holes in her torso.
I know.
From her getting
it's
skewered.
A lot, man.
Dude, and then the Yord scene, like, dude, if you were ranking violent Star Wars scenes, you've got to include some others in there, like Anakin getting chopped up and then lighting on fire when
that's
he slides.
A big one.
That's probably the most gruesome.
Aside from, and you're gonna laugh when I say this, but it's real. But Clone Wars has some pretty gruesome deaths as well. Yeah, it's not really.
It does, but it's cartoon.
I know, it is cartoon.
You're right. But like, that's why everyone needs to watch it. It's not really a cartoon.
Right, there's that video that came out on social media, and it was like 2.5 minutes straight of Clone Wars being a kid's show, and it showed all the gruesome deaths, like just in consecutive order for 2.5 minutes. But it reminded me of that. Like what you're talking about reminds me of that. It's like Star Wars sometimes is really not that violent. Most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
So that's why it was pretty intense when you see a full-grown guy get his neck broken.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude, it was like I think the Anakin death is number one. My producer Ryan said Luke getting his hand cut off was pretty gruesome. I'm like, yeah, but like I feel like there's been worse.
Yeah.
Darth Maul getting chopped in half.
That's a pretty good one.
That's a pretty decent one. But like,
it's a pretty good one.
Jecki getting triple stabbed and you seeing the burn holes, and then Yord getting his neck literally snapped. Those are at least 2 of the top 5 most violent scenes in Star Wars.
Right.
And so one of the things we talked about, you and I,
it seemed very
intimate. For sure. Mm-hmm. After episode 4, when Chimera, when the stranger reveals himself, he, after that episode, you and I talked, and we kind of talked a little bit about Disney. And I made that comp between the Lakers and Genie Bus.
Right.
And I specifically said I would prefer it if HBO owned Star Wars. And the main reason why is because of that. Like I want, like Star Wars to me, the darkness makes the light more profound. Like
Correct.
when something is profoundly dark and terrible, it's like Game of Thrones. Like the evil, it's the evil carries more weight when it gets defeated, when it has that darkness and intensity to it. And when you sugarcoat the evil, then it doesn't feel like as big of a deal at the moment of defeat. And like, I get it. There's a violence element. It's not for everybody. I'm not sitting here preaching that all Star Wars content should have Jackie getting turned into a shish kebab. But like, honestly, like there's gotta be a certain amount of darkness to really tap into the visceral, like human desire for retribution and the victory at the end. Right. And so like, HBO, if they own Star Wars, would probably have too much of that.
Yes. There'd be some rubber weenies.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I tried so hard not to say that joke and it just got set up twice and I just had it. I could not say that joke.
No, it was worth it. This was the right place. So, but like, that's the thing. Like HBO would have gone too far, but like I personally needed to see that Disney had this in them.
Yeah, that they had some
because
plums.
there's an audience for that with Star Wars.
Right. There totally is. No, there totally is. Everybody that likes all the Bane books and the Plagueis book, right? There totally is an audience. I 100% agree with you. There's a lot to talk about Chimere healing Osha. Right. I very much so think that he healed her.
So I disagree about this. So this is interesting.
Right.
So
and
tell everybody about the scene.
We really want your guys' comments on this one. So when Osha's down, to me, very clearly, it looks like Chimere goes over to her and heals her wound on her side. And to me, it does look like her wound on her side does heal in that split second. Now, the issue with that is traditionally in Star Wars, the dark side can never heal. It can only take, essentially, which is why Bane struggles in the past because he can't go. That's why he has to go get fixed by Khalib, is because Khalib is not of the dark side, right? Yeah. That's the only way that he can go get saved is because he can't go to, another dark side user and get healed. So that to me is problematic. But you seem to think that he wasn't healing her.
So I rewatched that scene several times specifically to try to see if I saw a healing. Mm-hmm. And the lighting on the skin changes as she tilts, but I viewed that as a product of the lighting changing,
right?
As
and that's
she tilts.
All it being. Mm-hmm.
But I did not see an obvious clearing of the skin, and so it's a couple things. First of all, if they were trying to show healing, I think they would have shown it completely go baby smooth, right?
Like Rey,
like Rey, yeah,
healing the basilisk.
As we've talked, the Leslie Headland has clearly read the Legends material. Right. She clearly has read Bane mind cortosis, Plagueis and Tenebris mind cortosis. She's read the Sith books. Mm-hmm. That is the point you're making about the healing. It's not like a passing mention. It is something that is consistently talked about because Bane always ends up finding himself needing to be healed.
Yeah. Well, he gets himself into some issues.
He gets into some shit, yeah. But and I'm pretty sure it's in Plagueis 2. I can't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure they mention it in Plagueis 2.
Right. So that's the whole entire prolonging life issue for them is they're the dark side and they can't heal.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And so I am we will see what ends up getting explained over the final 3 episodes, but I looked at that more as he was stirring her to make sure stirring her just to basically see if she was awake or whatever, because he basically did that and she kind of just rolled over and then he had this really interesting line about what it was what amazing beings we are, or what
I missed that.
As he's walking up to her, he says something along the lines of what it was amazing or powerful. It was what amazing beings we are. And then he said something that even in our moment of greatest triumph, you can see the depths of our despair. And it was very cryptic and kind of interesting. And I'm curious to kind of see that get fleshed out. We have to talk Chimera and where he fits into the Sith for at least a second. Okay. Because there's all these theories going around. I've seen people say Chimera is Plagueis. Someone has clarified for me that technically the fact that Plagueis is immune is not canon, although I'm trying to keep an open mind about it, but if you throw
That
out
would be a bummer.
if you throw out my favorite book ever, I'm going to be pissed.
That would be a huge bummer.
Yeah.
And that would be very modern Disney.
Yeah.
So
But
that would
I want to
suck.
I want
That
to
would
try to
absolutely
keep
suck.
an open mind about it, though.
Yeah,
I'm
you
trying.
and I will both try to, but that would I would be so pissed if that were the case.
Someone said something interesting in the sense that, like, if some people are like, what if he becomes the first Ren of the Knights of Ren?
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time believing that a being that was powerful enough to cut down 10 Jedi in cold blood would be a being that Darth Plagueis
Serves
and Tenebrous
Kylo Ren in the future.
Yeah, or that
guild.
Yeah, or that. Did you read up on the Knights of Ren? I read up on them. And basically, I guess like this guy Ren was like a dark side Force user. He started it, then Kylo killed him and took over the Order. But they were like a splinter order that was considered too small even for Palpatine to kill during the time.
Right. Yeah,
but then they end
makes
up
sense.
working for Palpatine at the end. It's like it's kind of the Knights of Ren is just another sloppy Disney concoction. I'm not really interested in it,
dude.
But
and
like,
a missed opportunity because they could have been so cool, but they just weren't utilized.
Exactly. Because there was no
the
plan.
Movies. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I saw this reel of a Dave Filoni talking, and he's like, he's like, you have to go into this with like an obvious idea of where it's going to end.
Okay. Yeah. What?
Novel
That's
idea.
incredible. That's all corporations should do that, huh?
And then he basically said, like, he's like, I already know how the movie's going to end. And so
Okay.
like he has this finish line, and now he's just filling up everything
Cool.
in between, which I like, right? And like but Disney never planned that, and so then they had no use for the Knights of Ren. It turned into this whole issue.
Gosh.
But like we know that Darth Plagueis or Darth Tenebrous is in charge at this point. It's just a question of whether or not Chimere is one of those guys, or if he's one of their apprentices that gets disheveled or like discarded at some point, or whatever it is. Like, we know that they're involved. There's just no way that, like, we know from Darth Bane, when one Jedi dies on Done, Bane sends Xana there, and Xana specifically says, like, yeah, any being that's powerful enough to kill a Jedi is worth our notice. She says that.
Right.
Any being that's powerful enough to kill 10 Jedi, you bet your ass the Sith wouldn't just let that fly. So, like, I'm leaning into this is a Sith.
Agreed.
I'm open-minded about who it could be. I do think it'd be fascinating from the standpoint of, like, him pursuing an apprentice is essentially a confirmation that he's ready to challenge his master.
Yep, I agree with that too.
Which that could lead into something. And so then we also know from the previews that Vernestra Rowe is going to get involved at some point with her lightsaber.
Right, with her whip. Yeah. It's kind of interesting too, because he is cryptic again, and he goes, some might call me Sith. Mm-hmm. It's like, why not just say I'm Sith?
He says
know
the
what
Jedi
I mean?
might call me
Oh yeah,
Sith.
the Jedi. You're exactly right. Yeah. So that was a little bit cryptic too, and I don't know if that is really that influential in this or not. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I thought about it though, like, it would have been even weirder if he was if Saul was like, "Who are you?" and then he was like, "I am Darth Plagueis, Dark Lord of the Sith."
No, I agree. That might have been a little bit lame.
Trick 4. Like,
Yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense.
No,
like,
I agree. That would have been a little bit lame.
Yeah.
What do you think May is trying to do? What do you think she's up to? Taking the place of Osha and acting like Osha. And also, May's got her tattoo head, which is hidden. And I've seen everybody get upset about that too. Like, oh, like it would be so obvious that that's not May, that's not Osha, that's May, just because of the tattoo. Well, her bangs do cover it for the most part. Also, Sol just lost his entire group of Jedi that he was in charge of. Like, he'd be a little bit disheveled, but like, what do you think May's up to? What do you think she's trying to do?
Well, let's just do this. Let's get out of here. Let's before we move on to our next topic, because I do want to talk the High Republic book for a minute.
Okay,
Let's just, you give me your best guess on two fronts. I want you to tell me what you think Chimere and Osha are going to do in the next episode, and what you think Sol and May are going to do in the next episode.
I still think that there's a really good chance that Osha becomes the true villain of the show. And I think that is the first seed. The last episode that we watched, I think, was the first seed of that. And I think that pretty quickly Sol determines that he's not in the presence of Osha and that he's truly in the presence of May. I think that's going to happen almost right off the bat in the next episode.
I agree. Well, a couple things. On the Sol May front, the droid.
Oh, right.
Or no, the snarf. The sniffing snarf.
yeah.
He makes an appearance with the droid's flashlight. I think that when he gets on board and he realizes that May doesn't actually have the other half of the droid, I think that's going to be an indicator for Sol. We also know that Sol makes it back just simply because of the fact that Vernestra gets involved at some point. And there's just theoretically,
makes it back to Coruscant,
if
you mean?
May killed Sol and stole the ship and met up with the Sith or ran away or what, it wouldn't even make sense for May to do anything for the Sith because May does it doesn't even make sense because the Sith wants to kill May. We saw that. So that doesn't make any sense either. So there's gonna be some sort of resolution there that involves them making their way back to Coruscant and informing the Jedi Council.
Agreed.
Osha in Chimere, this is where I think we're gonna get our introduction of the Sith Lord. What I think is going to happen is Chimere is basically going to sit down with Osha and be like, here's where the Jedi lied to you. I think he's going to. So, for instance, when
you think the Stonefire is about to get dropped?
I think we're going to learn. They'll either do it through a flashback or they'll do it through a tale. But my guess is it'll be a little bit of both. But in the moments where the Sith reveal themselves, they don't reveal themselves as these masochistic, we just want to kill everybody.
Right.
They reveal themselves as we're the same as the Jedi, just with a different code. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing too about the whole Knights of Ren thing. He literally was having having Osha or May quote the Sith code. Why would you be quoting the Sith code
if you're just a Knight of Ren? That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Peace is a lie. You're a Sith. That is the first line of the Sith code.
Agreed.
So anyway, I think Chimere is basically going to tell her what happened. There will be some sort of flashback, and then at that point, Chimere will reveal himself to Osha as a Sith. I think that's when he'll name drop. And
then his master is?
I think that, or himself. I think he'll just name drop himself.
And
he'll say, I'm Darth whatever, and it'll either be Darth Plagueis or it'll be Darth something else, who serves Darth Plagueis or who serves Darth Tenebrous, right? And I think that will get parsed out as more of a long-term thing of them training. And then essentially I think May will end up probably helping the Jedi track down and try to rescue Osha, and there will be some sort of final confrontation. I think my favorite outcome, though, would be the Jedi all dying.
I think they almost have to.
And the Sith tying off every loose end.
Yeah.
And then Darth whoever coming in and either killing Chimere or Chimere end up taking on the thing that's tricky is Plagueis canon is a male. It can't be Osha or May can't be Plagueis.
Okay.
We know that because when Palpatine tells Anakin the story, he killed him in his sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is set up. So May or Osha can't become Sith unless they are actually Tenebris's master and we're way many generations in the past, which maybe, but I doubt it.
Time frame, that would be a lot to fit in.
That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot.
150 years.
While Ki-Adi-Mundi is still alive.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They've created a little bit of a problem. It sounds like. Just gonna say it.
It's gonna get. I think they're gonna resolve this though.
I would like to think that under the gaze of Dave Filoni that it's gonna be sound. And I know he's not directing it. Everyone, I know. But he's in charge of
exactly.
Of
all the story, big picture.
Right.
Story
I'd
stuff.
like to think that he wouldn't just let that slide.
No, I'm with you on that. All right, before we get out of here, I started The Temptation of the Force. It's the latest of the High Republic books. To be clear, I actually liked the High Republic books at the start.
They started off strong.
The first three ending in the Starlight Beacon crashing, super fascinating.
Yep.
The nameless creature or the levelers were a really interesting kind of subplot. In the third High Republic book when they're running around Starlight Beacon, there's all these scenes with the leveler that are profoundly...
It's like a horror film.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's really good. And then when they flash back and tell the story of Iram and Erno, that's kind
another
of
great story.
Another interesting story. The battle on Dalna, interesting story. An interesting element there is as the levelers eat Jedi, they get bigger, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
So then they move back into the future, and there's the Stormwall thing, and we talked about that last.
The Nile.
The Eye of Darkness book was really tough because they literally build a wall across the entire galaxy. So we're talking 200,000 light years. It doesn't make any sense
in width and in height.
Yeah,
it literally, even for Star Wars, just impossible.
As Luke said, it's just the relentless like need for scale.
Yeah, it just makes no sense.
So, but do you also remember how the Eye of Darkness book just like not a whole lot happened?
It was just a lot of like sulking about by Markion Rowe, and it was like very rudderless, and it just didn't have any like really strong plot points. Yeah,
and the Jedi just like wallowing in their defeat,
helpless.
Yeah,
absolutely helpless,
not able to do anything. Well, this book is basically I'm only about 40% of the way through. But like it's just as boring, just as slow. There's this others. They're trying to. I'm not. This is not a spoiler because they literally reveal it in the opening chapters of the book. But like, and it's on the back cover of the book. It's like in the summary. But like, it's like now there's this blight that's killing all of the crops and the stuff. Like it's like a disease that's like spreading. And like it's like now we need another wrinkle in all of this. And guess what? Like Elzar Man is still like
it's feeling bad that I
almost turned to the dark side once.
The dark side once.
Yeah, and
it's like dude, lean into it. It was badass when you used it.
So eccentric and like heavy on emotion and like Mark Thompson, who I think is a legend. He's like doing a ton of voice acting in it, and so like that comes off as kind of corny because they're asking him to constantly act out like these like really emotional scenes that like don't really carry
like
any
maybe
weight.
A little distracting.
Yeah, like I'm pushing through it. Luke's gonna push through it when he hasn't started it yet, but he's going to. But like, dude,
I'm so not excited for this.
The High Republic books have been a little bit of a slog as of late. I'm not gonna lie.
I've heard takes too in the modern day Star Wars where it seems like Disney just like wants Jedi to look awful. And that resonates with me too. Like at some point, it's like, yes, Jedi have their flaws. Like, don't get me wrong, but they're not these helpless little beings. Like they are kind of showing Jedi in some pretty bad light lately.
Soul is going to save it for us, hopefully.
Soul is incredible.
Soul and Vernestra. Well, because Vernestra, by the way, is apparently like an absolute prodigy. In the Jedi Order, they talk about that a lot in the High Republic. But I agree with you. Like, I am okay with portraying the Jedi as a flawed organization in the sense that, like,
especially in the High Republic era.
Yeah, for sure. But like the idea that like they're a little bit hypocritical, they're a little bit rigid, like that sort of thing makes sense to me. But making them be
they're
little
like
bitches for lack of a better term.
Helpless.
Yeah, like that part is getting a little annoying.
They're like always helpless. Yeah, it's kind of odd.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep you guys posted, but it's a little bit of a slog working through the latest High Republic book. All right, guys, that is all we have for today. We will be back tomorrow night with the much anticipated episode 6. Are you excited, dude? I'm excited.
Stoked. We're gonna get together and watch that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll do
my
some
house
dinner,
or your
we'll
house?
Get our wives together. We'll make some food. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right, sounds
probably
good.
your house for G. Keep it nice and easy. We live like 2 minutes away from each other.
It's
so
the greatest thing. It's the greatest.
But yeah, we're going to be covering the Acolyte tomorrow. An episode I'm extremely excited for. I hope. Over like, what are the Vegas odds that we hear the word Darth in the next episode?
Ooh, I'm gonna say more likely than not.
I think I agree. I think I'm at like minus 150, like slightly more likely than not.
Yeah, not a huge payout on that, but I agree.
And I'm also like, if Chimere is a different Darth, which is what I'm hoping. I hope he's like a completely different character. I hope they just nail the name. I thought they come up with something cool. But yeah, dude,
there hasn't been a Darth that I've been disappointed in. Not a single one.
Did you see some of the reels too? Where they talked to Manny Jacinto and like how they really intentionally tried to make Chimere kind of like an unconventional Sith and like his fighting tactics and that sort of thing. He
headbutted a lightsaber. Yeah, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, I've rewatched the episode. And I've watched a bunch of the fight scenes on like Instagram reels and stuff. That was an all-timer.
Did you notice?
I think that's my favorite bit of Star Wars content since Disney took over. What about you?
Agreed. I 100% agree.
We're on the same page there.
Did you notice that there was a lot of fighting without lightsabers too?
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool.
Dude, that was cool.
Yeah, it was really good.
The triple punch that Soul lands after that first onslaught, he's like, and like he yells during, he's like,
yeah,
like he just unloads on the
cool.
guy.
It's cool, man. It's good.
Man, I'm loving it. I can't wait. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow night.
Thanks a lot.